how much time has gone. Will it even last that long? The bed is cold and it drains his soul until he falls asleep. Dreams of happy things before he was in the dark. And don't cry, my baby. It'll be
Hello everyone and welcome again to another painting stream with me, Bacicolio. I know that there have been a bit too many of those lately, but I'm trying to get through the Blood Bowl team for the World Cup. So there will be a bit of an oversaturation on that matter. How are you all doing? What's going on with you? How is the summer treating you?
stares into the final sky, and he wonders if it's next to him.
After one too many streams, I am happy to announce that I am finally switching over to a new mini to paint, which will be this dudester right here. Hopefully I can knock him out a bit quicker this time, but we'll see how it goes. Plans for today include some dry brushing on the leather, on the fur pelt, on his ass, and his hair. Following that, I can take a good look all over the mini and find if I need to clean up any areas before I move into the wash step. We'll pick out the areas and surfaces that I will be dousing in wash and those that I will be pin washing afterwards for shading purposes. But keeping it realistic, I think I should be able to do the dry brushing and go through the cleanup. Cleanup should be good. I managed a somewhat clean paint job on the base colors this time around. And I should also be able to fit in the washing. Technically, all the areas, all the surfaces that will be completely washed are the areas that I'll be dry brushing. So again, the pelt under the belt and the hair. Also the leather straps. Basically all the leather areas, so the boots, the straps, and the metallics. The skin, the blue, will remain for now, as I will be highlighting them first, and then pin washing some of the shades and some of the recesses to blend the whole transition between the tones a bit nicer. Yep, I think that's a plan. Meanwhile, a small announcement: Rebel Season 12 has just kicked off today. And as far as I can tell, I have already scheduled my first match, which will be on Monday, starting at 18 UTC. It will be against a very bloaty Nurgle. I don't mean bloaty, I mean that he is higher team value than me, and I am a bit bloaty, so I am a bit worried about what the outcome will be. Haven't played humans in a while, haven't played this particular team. Yeah, for the same amount of wildness. So yeah, this means that from now on there will be between 1 and 2 games a week of Blood Bowl 2 being streamed. That will be for Rebel. What can we do now? My setup seems a bit weird today. I had to put things in their place in a bit of a hurry. Because I was thrown off my game a little bit. But it should be fine. Right, so no need to postpone things any longer. I'm going to start with, oh my god, this turned the camera insane. Because it's white. Let's take a bit of a darker color. Thankfully, since I eat a considerable amount of takeout, I am not in the deficit of any napkins of any kind, which I will use to wipe off the paint from the dry brush. This will be the dry brush itself. And I will be starting off with Ashen Grey. Yeah, Ashen Grey will be good. We'll go over the hair with Ashen Grey. I really hate having to highlight black, because it's very easy to go from a highlighted black to a shaded gray, if that makes any sense. And I do want to keep the overall blackness. Not gonna be a nightmare if we go into the gray spectrum, but I just want to try and keep things as close to my actual intention as possible. Beyond that, we can always count things into the territory of happy little accidents. Just giving the paints a little bit of a shake. I know this looks goofy, but unfortunately it cannot be avoided. And if I shake them before the stream, there is a chance that the pigment will once again settle down into the bottom and separate a little bit from the medium. So hopefully you can tolerate me shaking the paints. And if not, and this gives you a bit of a smile, well, all the better. Right then, so I should clean up my paint pots. Grabbing a little paint. I am not going to put any water on the brush, since this is a dry brush technique. Hopefully, hopefully the camera won't go insane on me again. Although it has already given signs of the desire to do so. Again, if anyone is in any way able to give me any advice on controlling the exposure so that we don't get this kind of flickering whenever the cam has to compensate for low light, please let me know. Matter of fact, let me turn on the lights, maybe that'll help a little bit. Boosting the overall levels of light sometimes helps maintain things. This is going to be a challenge. Anyway, let's start just dry brushing here. My plan for the hair is pretty simple. I'm just going to have this layer of dry brush highlights on it. I am then going to shade it. Softly though. To blend down both the brightness of the highlights and try to fight off the horrible usual chalky effect that we get from dry brushing. As I've previously mentioned, I really don't like using dry brushing for painting. It is a good tool for weathering, but it is definitely not something I like to use in general, unless I'm looking for a particular effect. However, in cases where the texture is way too detailed, like the hair and here, it's just easier and it's significantly easier and gives out a better result, as opposed to me going in to paint each and every single separate strand of hair or fur or whatever the case might be. Okay. So maybe just the tiniest little bit more in a few places, but overall the effect has been achieved. Anyway, when I finish with this and the washing, I will go in again with another layer of Ashen Gray, just on the top of the head and right here, where there is a little bit of a raised surface. supposedly where there might be a little bit of additional shine, just to emphasize that. Usually I avoid handling my model with my fingers. However, as I am dry brushing pretty aggressively, I may break the pin that I use to keep the model held together on the cork. Full stop. One thing about the wash, so I will be using good old Nuln oil. Which means that it will bring down the highlight significantly. So I'm trying to actually give it a bit more than I want, so it could again go down. That should be about good enough. And now for the fur, I will be using a Dawnstone. And the reason I'm going straight to Dawnstone is because it is in fact Ashen Grey as a base. Although it is a layer paint. And the process there will be pretty much the same. So just one level of highlight. Maybe, just maybe, for the fur itself, I might go in with a mixture of Dawnstone and something along the lines of their Screaming Skull, and go in with a regular words are hard, with a regular paintbrush, and highlight a few separate strands, just for variation. Probably wouldn't do it for the hair. Because I actually want to try and get a good black hair on him. Again, not that it couldn't work in any off-gray, but I just want to try it, so to speak. And I hope that the camera flickering whenever you see much of my translucently pale, pasty skin doesn't make you turn off the stream. Because I know I would be annoyed if that happened. I did turn backlight compensation, didn't I? Yeah, it's on. Maybe a low light compensation would help. Let's see now. Yeah, so let's just try to avoid that altogether. Now, usually when dry brushing, you want to keep a single angle, which is when you need to simulate highlight from a particular light source. However, in this case, we are running vertical what's wrong with me today? Vertical lines. So I am going aggressively all over the model, alternating both directions. And in this first step, I will be covering the entire surface of the fur. I'm not going to go for a simulation of actual fur, as in make the top darker, so this middle section should be darker. If this is taken from the back of the animal, the top should be darker in tone than the sides, since the underbellies are usually lighter in tone. But in order to do that, I would need color variation, so probably a bit of brown in the mix. And it'll become a bit too much. As I am running significantly out of time to comfortably finish off the remaining miniatures of the team. So I'm going to try and go through the easy steps and not overcomplicate things for an effect that may or may not even register at the end of the process. Sorry. Yeah, I think that will do. Good. So, first level of highlighting with the dry brush is done. And I will just give it a moment dry, because even though it's called dry brushing, the paint is still thick and gooey, and if I happen to touch it, it may leave a fingerprint. Right, let's take a look and see which colors I would need to clean up. Okay, so blue. Brown. Yeah, pretty much all of them, sadly. So we need blue, we need brown, and we need the base flesh. For this process, I will be using the Monument Bombwick dead cords. I think I'm growing into liking them more and more, even though it is a bit counterintuitive to what I'm trying to achieve in terms of personal skill development, which is to work with a larger brush. Truth of the matter is, it is convenient to use these brushes, and I like the fact that the bristles are long, and the number one brush isn't as thin, meaning that it can hold some moisture before you start getting dry paint between the bristles or a dry tip of the brush. Overall, it is decent in terms of the working time that it provides. I'll just move this out of the way and save the camera some pain. I'll just take a moment. Not that I'm particularly tired of the dry brushing, but from the whole day cumulatively. And I pretty much treat these streams as a time to unwind a little bit. So I'm usually taking my time, taking things slow, which does work to my detriment in terms of output. And it may be a bit boring for you to see all of these dudes being painted over and over and over again. Hopefully this will soon change. Just 2 more miniatures after this guy and my team for the World Cup will be completed. And you will be seeing some polls to let you choose what my next projects will be. Starting August 28th, I will be having some vacation days off from work. So I am planning on doing some huge streams, very long, where I will focus and try to complete this project so that at around the start of September I will have the free stream slots for the new projects. September will be a bit of a crazy month, all things considered. I might not be able to introduce another game aside from Blood Bowl for the purposes of streaming, since I will probably be having a couple per week, one from Rebel and one for testing out the team, so a bit of practice. Which would only leave 2 more days, one of which will probably be a building stream and one will be a painting stream, because I can't particularly guarantee that I can handle more streams on a weekly basis. Oh, so when the school year begins, I will resume instructing karate class twice a week, which also means that 2 of the streams might be a bit shorter, so I'll be coming home later. we will see when that will actually happen. And then of course there will be a week during October, the middle of the first week up to the middle of the second, when the World Cup will actually happen, and I will be traveling to Dornbirn for it, along with the rest of the team, and I will not be able to stream during this period. I will try and post some pictures during that on Instagram and Facebook. So in case you haven't followed me on these medias, please check out the buttons below. There is a link for Facebook, and I think that I have added the Instagram. Either way, I will be posting simultaneously on both medias. And of course, all the streams are uploaded on YouTube for archiving purposes, so if you miss any stream and if you want to check back at some of the stages or some of the games that I've played, please feel free and encouraged to do so. So we will be starting from inside out for the clear-ups. Or should we start the other way around? Interesting. No, let's clean up the flesh first. So where is there? Yeah, here. Okay. Again, a bit of paint shaking. Probably just gonna take a couple of drops here and there, but still I prefer to do it now before I start highlighting, in order to avoid Hey there, JR Koss. Thank you for following. How are you doing today? Sure. Let's say I'm fine as well. How did you come about this stream? Unless, of course, it is a well-kept secret. And apologies if I mispronounced your name. I might need to increase the time that the notifications stay on screen. Okay, well. Either way, thank you very much for joining me. Every single person is much appreciated. Do you take interest in miniature painting or tabletop games or Blood Bowl in particular? Alright, no worries. Stay safe and stay dry. Do you partake in any particular kind of art, as in drawing or modeling or whatever, or is it just the sheer aesthetic appreciation of it? Hey there. I was just asking if you were partaking in any kind of art or just enjoying it in terms of aesthetic appreciation and the sort. Oh, you do? Care to tell me a bit more, like pencil drawing or oils or something along those lines? Oh, that's nice. Horror is very cool to bring into any type of artistic representation. Firstly, because it works, it affects the psyche of the observer in a very, let's say, unusual way, because it is a different type of aesthetic to try and bring. And secondly, it does give a lot of creative freedom. And thirdly, depending on the medium, I seem to remember that there was a comment made a while back regarding, well, multimedia horror, such as movies and video games, that it actually helps if you keep things rather rough and ugly, as it emphasizes sometimes the effect. I'm not particularly sure on that. Yeah, sure. I mean, do you have a preferred style, as in body horror, as in gore and dismemberment, or more along the lines of creepy, psychological, thrillery? Or do you juggle all substyles and subgenres depending on your current mood? Awesome. Yeah, there is no real need to limit oneself to either or. Nowadays, there seems to be a huge attempt for everyone to sub-separate things, adding subgenres to subgenres to subgenres in all types of media, music, all types of entertainment. And instead of trying to come together to build bigger communities, we try to segregate them into smaller and smaller pieces. And I've always been annoyed for this. Trend, so to speak. For instance, thank you, but unfortunately I haven't sculpted this. I merely put paint on it. And this is another topic that was, and still is, under very much scrutiny and discussion within the community. Is miniature painting art or not? Again, following on the same theme of... Thank you. Yeah, I really loved the... So this is a part of a fantasy football team. There are 15 models that are similar to this one. Yes, thank you. And so the classic art styles tend to not recognize this as art. And honestly, in my opinion, it all depends on what is the intent that you put into your painting. So, in order for it to be art, or anything to be art, the aesthetic value must be the primary intent of the act. So if you're doing something in order to bring an aesthetic representation, thank you. I'm glad you do appreciate it. But let's say you take this as a gaming piece, since effectively it is, or well, is going to be, and you just put color on it for practical reasons, so pragmatics, as in to differentiate it from the other team or differentiate the different positionals of your team, then yes, you can have the argument that there is no art in this case because it is done for pragmatic purposes, and if aesthetics would occur, they are a secondary byproduct of the process. And I've never really heard that being brought up before, so it'd be interesting to raise it in case there is a larger forum discussing the concept. And there are also yes, as an observer, so as a how should I say, as a recipient of art, one can always find the aesthetic. And this is cool. The ability to see this in, especially in mundane things, just brings color and life into the gray everyday cycle. So it is a good thing. It is a good skill, and well, it just makes you feel alive, doesn't it? Well, I have been playing Blood Bowl for quite a while, both on tabletop and on PC. So my opinion on the matter is quite subjective, but I'm gonna go ahead and say that yes, it is very cool. It's a wonderful little fun game. It is more or less a game of risk management, emulating a American football style game with fantasy characters. So this is a member of a Norse team, so Viking-like dudes, but there are also orcs and elves and dwarves, as well as chaotic spawns, which may be more to your liking if we keep up to the horror theme. Since the whole game is in itself a spin-off of the Warhammer universe, the fantasy Warhammer universe, so it uses a lot of the basic tropes, including their own concept of hell, which is the fact that emotions are actual cosmic forces, and whenever they amass enough, they create consciousness in something called the warp. And when enough of that manifests, it brings in a particular demon. And in the Warhammer universe, there are about 4 of those. One being Khorne, who is the embodiment of war, bloodshed, gore, all that stuff, all that cool stuff. The other one being Slanesh, who is the embodiment of excess. So, lust, the physical pleasures mostly. You also have Tzeentch, who is the Lord of Change. So the evanescence of things. And then you have Nurgle, who is the Lord of Rot and Decay, and his worshippers are usually zombie-like, rotting, bloated creatures. And in Blood Bowl, there is a team that is dedicated to Khorne and a team that is dedicated to Nurgle. So if this sounds interesting to you, you may look into it. And you may find some models that can tickle your fancy to pick up a brush and paint some rotting flesh and boils and the type. Oh, cool. Oh yeah, there was a mobile version of it. Sure thing. Whatever medium it is, it might be a great gateway to get engaged. An interesting fact about the game is that the tabletop version is, I think, about 30 years old right now. And it was discontinued for the longest time, so maybe 15 years. However, the community was so strong that they created an international sort of sports federation to coordinate tournaments and events related to Blood Bowl, and also third-party sculptors and casting miniatures casters started creating new teams. And a couple of years ago, the owners of the game actually decided to re-release it, which sparked even more life back into the game. And in just 1 month time, there will be a World Cup tournament that'll be held in Austria, in Dornbirn, for the tabletop version, and I will be attending, which is why I actually am painting these guys right now. This will be the team that I'll be playing on the World Cup. And it's also fun that you actually have it in digital form as well as on tabletop. So you can actively play with people from all over the world and spice up events such as this one. Thank you, thank you. I haven't really played with this race too much. It'll be a bit of a new experience. Also, I will be playing against people who have been doing this for over a decade. So I'm not expecting to crush the opposition. It's also a team event, so I'm going with 5 other people. And we'll see how it goes. It's a 3-day event. And it's gonna be fun. Last year we went to the European Championship, and it was just great fun. So many people sharing the same interest. Taking time off from their mundane lives to just have some fun. It was pretty cool. Unfortunately, for the life of me, I can't seem to be able to defeat the camera flickering, so apologies for that. Whenever there is too much of my hand, the camera goes a bit bananas and starts to flicker. And so far I haven't been able to find a permanent solution to the problem. It's annoying. I mean, it's annoying to me. I can only imagine how it would be for a viewer. I've also joined online league. Oh great, I'm glad that you like it. And if you decide to keep on playing, or you want any more information or resources, you can always chat me up or come back to the stream, and me and everyone else who sometimes joins are, I'm not gonna say fanatical, but we are quite enthusiastic about the game, so we would like nothing more than to indoctrinate someone else. Still though, no pressure at all. Don't feel it like that. So I'm currently just cleaning up the mess I made after the first layers of paint, because from here on out I will be building up on these colors to highlight and shade the recesses, and I want to have as crisp as possible foundation on which to build up. Because otherwise you start going into blending highlights and putting in shading, and if there is color overlapping, it just ruins the overall effect. Even though it's a small mini, as you can see, it's about the size of my thumb. If you pick it up and look close to it, these things really impact the overall effect of the mini. Sorry about the goofy sound, but these paints need to be shaken. Yeah. It's a pretty zen experience if you can look at it this way. I like doing it because it helps me unwind after a long work day. Just focus on something completely different. And since it is detail and precision oriented, it's easier to just completely switch your mind into it and forget any kind of daily woes you may have had. And in the meantime, I decided to share all of this online. I'm by far not the best painter. My original idea was to create just a platform where we can share techniques, ideas, comments. Whenever some of the other guys join, they share their work in progress pictures of their own teams. So we look into them and give sort of community advice. And of course, we use the opportunity to completely nerd out on the topic that we all love. So there's that. Another aspect of the hobby is the process of building the miniatures. Because sometimes you collect parts from different models, you kit bash them together into something new, or you sculpt something from milliput. As so if I wanted to put some additional details on the shoulder pad or something, I might sculpt something a little bit on it, and so on and so forth. But I treat these as a separate type of stream. I have a orc team that is going to be assembled from 3 different types of model kits. And there will be a lot of cutting apart and matching different pieces from different model kits together. I'm gonna try and turn fantasy-looking orcs into cyborgs, which might be fun. Like replacing their arms, sometimes their legs. And I've been considering it for quite a while, looking through different manufacturers to find the parts I need. In order to make my team as unique as possible. These ones I just put together as they are, because as you mentioned, they are indeed very finely sculpted, and it would have been just sacrilege to cut them apart and well, ruin the sculptor's overall concept on them. So these I'm just gonna paint as they are. Let's take another quick look overall. There isn't too much overspill anywhere. Yeah, let's just call it good enough. Right. So next step. What you may have missed was a process I call, well, I don't call it that, it's agreed that it is as such. It's called dry brushing. It's when you take compound directly from the paint pot, wipe most of it off on the on some sort of napkin, and then apply it to the model in a semi-dry fashion. That way, if the surface is highly detailed, such as in this case the fur which is beneath the belt and the hair, if you can see on the camera, I haven't painted the individual strands of hair or fur separately. I just ran with the brush, and the dry paint just caught on the raised areas, creating a quick and easy highlight for them. However, it does leave a bit of a chalky finish, which is not the most pretty thing to look at. So I'm going to apply a concoction called a wash, or a shade as this particular manufacturer calls it. It is a very thinned out type of paint. It's like soap water. It works like soap water in that the pigment of the paint goes straight into the recesses and leaves out most of the raised areas, and it is oftentimes used to bring down the recess shades, giving us an emphasis on the shadows. In addition, if you use it over paint with matte finish, which I'm doing right now, it will also tint the surface a little bit towards towards the color of the shade. And I will use this to, at the same time, emphasize the shadows in the fur and the hair, and also blend the highlights down in order to obscure the chalky finish of the dry brush highlight. This is still pretty much a technical approach to painting, so there's not that much or any skill involved in it. But for surfaces such as this, going in with a normal paintbrush and painting each individual strand of hair would take about 1 billion years to do. And considering I need to paint 16 of these guys, it's not particularly feasible. If it's a one-off mini. This one, I think this will be the second or third stream. It is, yeah, but I'm painting very slowly, as you can see. For instance, this guy took me maybe 5 or 6 streams, maybe more, to finish up. I just completed him yesterday. Well, I am doing it, as I mentioned, with the idea of it being a bit therapeutic and relaxing. I usually start projects way in advance, so I have the time to take it easy and not have burnout. Still, I would prefer it if I could paint just a little bit faster. Because at the end of the process I usually resent any model, because I've spent so much time at it, I'm sick and tired of it. But I am near the finish line, so after this guy, I have just 2 more to paint, and my team will be completed. And then I can finally start painting something different with different color themes. Because that is pretty much the... hopefully so. But really doubtful. But yeah, probably the worst thing about miniatures painting is that more often than not, you're painting either a squad, a group of miniatures, or maybe even entire armies. Oh yeah, I mean, aside from the gaming aspect, there will be a painting competition that I will be entering with the team. But if you look a little bit throughout the internet, you will find out that there are people that paint like 1,000,000,000 times better than me in this thing. Like, there are truly, truly magnificent paint jobs. Thanks, thank you very much. That is uplifting. Have someone believe in you. We'll see. Main point is to go out and have fun, and the competitive spirit of things, it comes along naturally, and it is there for sure. But again, it is very much a risk management game. It is dice driven, so even if you are an expert at the game, which I'm not, a few bad dice rolls will just snowball you out of the way. Yeah, pretty much. So there are actions in the game that do not require dice rolling, and there are actions that require dice, and there are circumstances within the game that make the dice rolls more favorable towards you or toward the opponent. And the whole point of the game is to make it as favorable for you as possible. Yeah, so you need to balance out the risk and certainty, and in the end, score more touchdowns. And there is also a slight RPG element in that all the players accumulate experience, they gain levels, they need, and therefore you can give them skills or increase their attributes and whatnot. Which means that playing in leagues and campaigns is much more fun, because you get to develop your team and turn them into killing machines or very quick, agile machines, or whatever style is most appropriate for you. So I will be thinning out the shade, as if I apply it straight from the pot, even though it is pretty thinned out already. It may, when it dries up, it'll dirty up the whole look, and I want to avoid that. I just want to have nice deep shading and build up contrast. Because one of the things that is very important, probably the most important when it comes to miniatures painting, is to increase, emphasize, and even hyperbolize the contrast. Because of the scale of the miniatures, you need something that will pop out and become a focal point. Just draw your attention to the miniature as a whole or to a particular detail of it, which is why I want to have very deep shadows, on top of which the highlights will pop out visually even more, so that when I put these guys on the table, they will catch the eye. And when I get to the further stages of highlighting, I will also try to create smooth blends between the different tones of the colors, so that in case you pick it up to look at it from up close, you won't see stark transitions between light and dark. This is the idea, of course. Whether or not the execution will match it is a different topic entirely. I'm going to go for a simple zenithal highlighting, so I'm going to highlight the miniature as if the light source is straight from above, in order not to create any additional hassle or difficulty for myself in this case. I want to prevent too much pooling in the recesses, again in order to avoid dirtying up the look. So for instance here I want to move the paint a bit, because it's creating a little puddle and I want to avoid that. Because I already have given it a rough initial highlight, and I don't need to go super extreme on the differentiation. And also I will go for another highlight after this, which will be more precise. Thanks. Yeah, the shading, the shades and the washes are very nifty little tools that really help out miniatures painting. And they also have multiple applications, so it's not just about creating depth. Sometimes you want to tint a color a little bit into a different sorry in a different tone. For instance, as you can see, his boots have some leather straps right here and here, and I will use washes to tint the boot leather in a different style than I will do for the leather straps below the boots, which will create delineation and will make them pop out as separate details instead of blurring together, even though I use the same color as a base. Gonna do the same for the hair. In at the start of the stream, I mentioned that painting black is pretty tough and challenging, and I haven't really attempted this in the way that I am tackling it now, because it is very easy when you paint black and you try to highlight it. It's very easy to go from a lighter shade of black into a deeper shade of gray. So I need to ensure that I keep as much of the black as possible and keep the highlights very subtle so that I don't change the overall look of the color. I need to try and keep it black and not go too far into the gray. And the problem in this case is that the hair, and so the head and the shoulders being a zenithal highlight, will need to be the lightest parts of the miniature. And at the very top where the hair is, I actually have to keep the highlights subtle somehow as to not change the overall tone of the color. And I'll see if I can manage it. I mean, it's not a catastrophe if it goes into gray, but it's just, let's just call it a mini goal that I've put for myself, as in trying to actually give a proper representation to my intent rather than work off of whatever happens. Okay. And since I am still using shades, I might as well go into the other shades. I'll be using a brown wash for most of the leather. This, the one that I was using so far is more blackish, whereas this is more of a brown wash. And unlike the fur and the hair, I don't care if this dirties up the look, because it is worn out leather, and so I do want to simulate a rougher texture. So it's okay if it goes on a bit too thick. Also, using the effects of the paint, I am trying to create a little bit of a pool towards the ends of the detail, since this creates an additional it's like a contour. It helps to delineate the separate details of the model. So in miniatures painting, it's called panel lining. And it is also a type of pin washing, meaning that I don't, well, in this case I do, but in other occurrences, I don't wash the entire surface, but only particular pieces of it. But I won't be doing that today. Today I'm focusing on what I can knock out as quickly as possible, and that includes washing entire surfaces. So the leather falls into that category. And I'm just slopping it all over. With almost no thinning. Now, I haven't come up with any of this. These are all techniques that are in the modeler's arsenal for a very long time. But as any trade, I'm just stealing as much as possible and adapting it to my liking. Essentially, what I mean to say is that I'm not right now reinventing the wheel. I'm just following some general guidelines. And a very large insect has found its way into my room. And it's flying around, and it is very loud and annoying. But I will have to hunt it down and kill it later, because right now I'm doing something else. Because right now where I live it's extremely hot, and I just wouldn't be able to survive if I closed the windows. And since there are quite a bit of trees around my apartment, the occasional bug does find its way. But I'll hunt it down later. Can't be bothered right now. So I just want to put some more concentrated shade right here. Again, to act as contour. And bring up some of the details. here, yes. There is some more leather. Now, something really dumb I did when I was putting this dude together. I should have actually made it so I can paint him in sub-assemblies. Meaning that I should have kept the arms off the model before I painted them, because right now I have to swerve around and I've created an issue for myself that wasn't really necessary. But I just got so excited when I got them, when I received them, that I just really wanted to see them all put together. So I glued them all without much thought about how that would affect my painting. Okay. And because I use a small brush, and I tend to get carried away, I forget to check for paint drying in between the bristles. And so now I'll have to scrape off some of the dried paint. Very gently, so I don't damage the bristles. But I really have to do it now, or else it may cause the tip of the brush to fray. And in miniatures painting, this is pretty much the only thing that matters when you're using a brush. You need to have a fine and reliable tip. Now back to the blackish wash. I'm gonna go over the silver metallics to give them more of a worn out feel. It'll kill a little bit of the shine, which will make it easier for me to highlight it with reapplying other metallic paints. Again, this is not one of the areas where I need the wash to be particularly thin. Since I am going for the look of a hammered metal. So I want to dim down as much of the shine as possible, and then only bring up bits and pieces of it to act as eye candy. So yeah, even though it hasn't dried completely, you can tell the difference between the washed metallic and the pure one. So this would be another example where I'm using this type of paint not just to emphasize the recesses and the shadow, but also to tint the overall color, and also since it has a matte finish, I am trying to kill the shine of the metallic. Just a bit too thick here, but that's okay. Clean it up real quick. With just a bit of a moist brush, I'm going into the formed puddles so I can soak up some of the excess paint and avoid too much staining. And we move on to the arm. Oh, don't worry about it. Like, don't feel pressure to interact. If something actually does bring up an interest, or you want to comment, please do so. But otherwise, I'm comfortable enough just rambling on the happenings. Yeah, 6 days of no texting is probably not a good thing. I am in a similar predicament where we haven't seen each other for about more than a month now. And during this time we've texted about twice. Oh, sorry to hear that. I'm sorry. I hope things turn out for the better. Fingers crossed. Just make sure to be there for her if she oh, thanks, but it'll go the way it goes. Um, I'm definitely not the most qualified person to give out advice like this, but um, most of the times you can only help someone in case they actually, well, give you a sign that they are willing to accept help. So, beyond you demonstrating and, well, making sure that she knows that if she wants support, you are there for her. Beyond that, you shouldn't push too hard, because it might backfire. But yeah, mostly just keep assuring her that you're there and that you can be there. And she'll come around when she is prepared. At least in my humble experience. Because in previous relationships, I've managed to do more damage with being overbearing than I would have done if I just gave her a chance. Anyway, though, that is beside the point. Most what I can do is keep my fingers crossed and hope that everything is going to be okay. Oh, that's good. That's good to know. I'll just take a little bit of a break with a smoke. So here we've done the silver metallics with the shade. Next I'll shade the golds and move on to the leather straps, and that'll be it for the shading step. But while I'm not doing anything, I'll just put back the paints I got out, because I don't really have much space. On my painting station, and I don't want to get overwhelmed with the amount of clutter because I'm essentially painting on my PC desk. And space is scarce. I will need Agrax. This. There's the flesh wash there. No, no. Where is it? Oh, there it is. I have been going a bit too monotone over the last few streams, as I am trying to make some progress on these miniatures. And so there hasn't been too much variety in terms of content. But in principle, the idea is that I would stream a game. I would stream my regular Blood Bowl games, the ones on PC at least. And I would alternate between painting projects and miniature building projects. At the end of the month, I'm thinking about putting up some polls in which my Facebook followers will be able to help me choose what to paint next and what to build next. No, I'm streaming only on Twitch, but as support medias, I'm using Instagram and Facebook, mostly Facebook, for just off-stream chats and sharing of works in progress, announcements for upcoming streams, and so on. And I also keep an archive. Oh yeah, I try to, yeah. Currently, I am playing through the game called The Surge. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a Souls-like game, so a bit like Dark Souls with more of a sci-fi twist on it. Made by a German development studio. And I have built I've put together miniatures for a different game system called Necromunda. So it's these burly dudes with the mohawks and the grenade launchers and large axes. I've put them together on stream as well. And they will be in the list. By the way, if you notice this guy's cigar, this was a separate piece to put in. And needless to say, it was a hell of a nightmare. But anyway. So they will be featured in future streams for painting. And I will try to build the cyborgs as well. And in the meantime, go through the weekly game of Blood Bowl in my online league. Following last season, I was promoted to a higher division. So I am probably gonna get creamed this season, but we'll see. Because the teams are a little bit more developed than mine. and the coaches are with quite a bit more experience and skill. It'll make for a entertaining watch for sure. I don't know if I was just thinking about it or if I mentioned it, but okay, I'm here. I'll be here. Yeah, the first game of the season will be on Monday. $1800 UTC. Wait, no, I wanted to go for the golds first. So I'll be using Reichland Flesh Shade for the gold, because it's a warmer shade than Agrax, and it gives a nice reddish tint. To the golds. And I am happy to repeat once again that the previous miniature I finally, so being the 8th miniature in a row that I'm painting the same style, I finally managed to get highlighting gold right. And hopefully by the time I reach the highlighting stage of this gold, I will still remember what I did and the way I did it, and I'll be able to replicate the same effect. Now, of course, I forgot to paint the belt buckles, but that's not horrible, because they are such a small detail. I'll just go back in during the first stage of highlight, and I will base coat them with the first layer of highlight. They're so small that layering paint will be barely noticeable. Hey, I was just bragging about having finally been able to find a good recipe for highlighting golds, because reaching levels of bright gold without it looking very cheap has been a bane in my existence and had caused me to go always for more coppery overtones instead of going pure gold, like bright gold. And I finally managed to do a good build-up of highlights on the previous miniature, and I was hoping that I'd be able to replicate it on this dude as well. Because what most people do when highlighting golds is to use bright silvers and just touch on the edges of the details, which is fine if it's a small detail, but for larger and flatter surfaces it just doesn't work, especially if such as in the case here with the legs and with the arm, there are silver details next to gold details. Highlighting the golds with silver just makes them look funky and they don't mesh well. So I finally found a good gradient of highlights that manages to bring out this darkened down gold into a brightness, which, as little as it is, it's still a little bit of a breakthrough in terms of my own painting abilities, which was nice. And it was also captured on stream, which is double nice. So yeah, I'm right now dimming down the golds with a reddish wash, because I want to keep them in the warm spectrum and not go to black or black brown, so that I can build up the vibrancy with the highlights. And I also noticed that I haven't painted the buckles on the leather straps, but I will fix that when I get to the highlighting stage. Gonna shade the underside of the gold as well. Here I'm probably not gonna bother with any further highlights, as it is opposite to the light source, and it is where the darkest shadow should fall. And the flying bug is on the rampage again, knocking its head against the light bulbs, and it is annoying me significantly. And I do have one of these bug zapper thingies, but they don't work on these particular bugs, because they're too large. They don't fry when hit by the electricity. It only works on small whatchamacallits, flies and the type. Although a whole moth once went into the thing, and it got electrocuted so hard that there was actually a smell of something burning, which was pretty metal, not gonna deny. I'm gonna use the same thing to shade this to be bone. But I did remember to paint this hidden buckle, just to show that my brain literally goes all around. Anyway. Alright, so that's the gold all nice and dimmed down. And the final shade that I'll be putting on will be a red like, going a bit into purple, mostly red. It's called yeah, some kind of crimson.
Tell me life is a crime, I'm done being sad all the time. Please tell me that I am wrong. Please tell
And this color will be used to tint the leather straps. And you will be able to see the power of tinting. Now in this particular case, I am creating a bit more problems for myself rather than helping it, because highlighting something that is a two layers of paint on top of each other with a single layer is difficult. But since the details are somewhat small, it usually works out. Worst case scenario, I will just reapply some of the shade over the highlights to blend them down with the overall color. Or in other words, it'll be just fine. And you can see, let me just get my hands out of the way. You can see how immediately the straps pop out as separate details to the boots. Even though we started off with the same color for both, since we use different washes over them, they now have a completely different saturation of color. Now this big old strap here should be a bit more careful because it is a larger detail. and I don't want it to stain too badly. And whereas the little straps I can overlook if the highlighting goes bad, here I might need to reapply the wash afterwards just to make it look good. Now here I am going a bit too heavy, and I'm not really giving enough time for the shade to dry, and it does sometimes dry darker, but here's hoping that I don't overdo it. I'm doing it for the sake of expediency. Okay, I even painted these buckles, so why the hell did I not paint the most obvious ones? I swear, my brain literally just evaporates at certain points. Alright, oh actually I can go with another layer on the big huge strap here. Oh, thanks again for joining. Bye, have a beautiful evening, and again, I hope everything works out well with you and the girlfriend. And if you ever feel like it, you're welcome to join back along, and also to let me know how you feel about Blood Bowl. And I also missed here. Because why wouldn't I? Guess I'm getting a bit tired. Although I really shouldn't. Hasn't been too long. Radio. Maybe enforce the shade here. Alternatively, I could just get some mahogany instead of trying to fuck things around. As I am. Ow. And this will be our shading process done for now. Time for a little bit of a stretch. Clean up the brush. And then I will be going back for a little bit of dry brushing on the fur and the hair, which was, to be honest, the thing that I wanted to get painted today. And I do the shading along the lines just because I started and I already have the colors on the palette, so why the hell not? Might as well put these back. And there we have served their purpose for now. These bugs are insanely annoying. They don't bite or anything. They're not even disgusting. It's just that they're big bugs that live on trays. Probably eat leaves and such garbage. And just like any other bug, they have a horrible hard-on for every single source of light imaginable. Meanwhile, final confirmations for our team rosters are expected. Give a quick confirmation because the deadline for submitting them to the committee is in a couple of days. So we're trying to get things sorted out. I really do want to get some more practice games in. The Norse are a very, how should I say, they are a very misleading team. And it's very easy to get caught up in, well, every piece has block, so I might as well just smash and smash and smash. But then again, you have 4 out of 12 out of 11 pieces on the pitch with Frenzy, maybe 5 if you include the Yeti. And it's insanely easy to get Frenzy trapped or out of position. So you actually have to be much more careful than you initially go into it. I remember my first games with Norse were just bloodfest, a bash fest, and it didn't work out too good for me. Also, they have armor value of 7, which is the lowest possible for normal players, meaning that if something remains standing up and hits you back, you're gonna feel it. And I usually do. Also, as with my last game against Big in Space, it showed that the over-reliance on block and 2 strength 4 pieces really does not compensate if you are against 4 players with guard, especially in terms of frenzy trapping. So they need to be played much more tactfully than I do right now. Plan for much more surgical strikes. And not basing too much, even though you want to set up and generate as much blocks as you can on your turn. Going base to base with everything, it gives the opponent too many chances. So unless dudes are down, I wouldn't base them. I shouldn't base them. But we'll see how that goes. Either way, more practice is always good. Unfortunately, neither in my local tabletop league, well, the tabletop league that I am playing in, it's not mine by any stretch of the imagination, nor in Rebel am I playing Norse. And as much as I wanted to focus on a particular race for a while, as I had done with humans before, I ended up with three races being played across 3 separate tournaments? Yeah, tournaments. So I'm playing humans in Rebel, Dark Elves in the tabletop, and I'll be bringing Norse to the World Cup. And all 3 teams have significant differences. They're not extreme differences, but they are palpable. And using the same style of play will definitely not yield the same results. Because humans have higher armor value and elves have higher agility. And I put way too much pain for what I'm about to do. So starting off with the head, I'm just gonna highlight the very top. Now I'm going back to reinforce the highlights, but I'm just gonna go for the raised areas closest to the light source. The top of the head here. I don't know if that really registers, but in this case, better to keep it subtle than over-exaggerate it. And I'm just gonna go with a little bit here as it goes on the back. And back to the top a little bit. Yeah, I think that works. I think it still registers as black. Like, there is a bit more shine on the camera than there is in real life, for whatever reason. And maybe a little bit here. Yeah, overall, close to okay, I guess. Could have been better. And I'm gonna do the same with the fur. Only I will use the lighter gray. And so this here will take up some highlighting. Right here on the thighs. Over here on top of the thighs as well. And right here. Yeah, and I will go with a normal brush to bring in a bit more highlight here and here, just some separate strands for just the tiniest little bit of extra pop. And I will try to wash this brush, as much as an impossible task that might be. And what do you know, we are right on time. So what comes next? Oh yeah, the flesh. Right? We did the highlights on the intense details. Boy. Should I go in for the gray? Just to call it dunsies. Should I just keep it like that? I think there is enough separation. Don't need to overemphasize it. I think it's good enough as it is. So yeah, next time I will be tackling the skin, which is gonna probably take up an entire stream of the face too. Yeah, I'm gonna have to start off with the face. And the eyebrows. Yeah, well, we'll deal with it in due time. Yeah, good progress today. Don't think I forgot something. So let's try and estimate how much work we got in terms of streams. So one stream for Flash and Face. Hopefully I'll be able to do both of them. It'll be a bit challenging, but I might go a bit overtime just to make sure it's done. So one stream for Flash, one stream for Blue, and Brown? Would I be able to do Blue and Brown in the same stream? So 1, 2, 3, 4. So in approximately 4 streams, this guy should be completed. If anyone's taking notes, you can use this as a weapon against me at a later point in time. For now, however, I think I will be calling it a night. Thank you all for joining and tagging along for this painting stream. I'll probably be back tomorrow to continue, as I need to get as many of these in as possible to hurry along with the whole process. But I will see and let you know tomorrow. Until then, love what you do what you love, and I've been Bachakolio, wishing you a good night. Bye bye now.